Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the Courthouse and Property Committee to order. Commissioner Sweeney is going to lead us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the beauty of the sunshine and nurture handiwork. We thank you for the leaders in our community and their commitment to help grow Bedford County in a very Stewart-like manner. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Everyone's present except for Commissioner Smith, and he is out of town for work. The first thing on our agenda is the approval of the May 18th Courthouse and Property Committee minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second. Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, next is Zoning and Planning Department report. Okay, well, everybody's got a copy of the report. Doesn't look like Chris is here tonight. Does anybody have any comments on that? Okay. Looks like collections are up quite a bit. Okay, next is IT.
I didn't have anything to ask about the report, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask them to me. I'm glad to answer them, and that you have. We had a new replacement. We had a position that we had to replace, and it opens up another position that we hired at probably within the month. Good.
Awesome. Are you fully staffed then?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
Do you normally hire out of the TCAT computer program that they have there?
Yeah. So that's a great question. We have requirements for our job opening. Those include some of these requirements. They require certifications.
Okay.
So or some skill level. So depending on, we can't just hire people, anyone with no experience into the IT department. They have to have some experience in IT, or they have to have some training. And the Tennessee College of Applied Technology is the perfect place to get that. So yes, we work with the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, and we encourage their department. We help their department with different things. I'm actually a member of one of their advisory committees for their IT department, and we work closely with them. Yes, our students, they typically come from the school because they have all the requirements that are needed in order to fill one of these positions.
Awesome. Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Fire department. Okay. How's that new fire truck going?
Well, we're getting closer to being service.
Good.
We're down one employee. We've lost one.
Okay.
Thanks to Shannon and the HR department, that's going very smoothly for us on the replacement.
Awesome. Does anybody have any questions for Mark? Okay, thank you. 911. I think he's here, isn't he? Okay. Anybody have any comments on his report before we move forward? Okay. GIS, media.
Nothing really to add to the written report unless anyone has any questions.
I don't think so. I think you're continuing to do a great job. Anybody have any questions? Tonight's an easy one so far. All right. Thank you, John. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve all the reports.
Make a motion to approve.
Sure.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, all opposed? Okay, under old business, I spoke with John T. today about the Warners Bridge Road, and he's still working on a deal with, we're continuing with our temporary arrangement, and he's working on some liability insurance issues and hopes to get that settled eventually to be a permanent solution. So he'll let us know more when we have more information on that. Does anybody else have any old business? Okay, new business. We have some surplus from the county clerk's office. I just need a motion to approve that.
Move to approve.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the next new business is the 231 Business Park possible land purchase option, and I will turn that over to Greg Vick, if that's okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We talked at the commission meeting last week about the option agreement for the purchase of the property out on 231, allowing us direct access off of 231 into our park. There were some questions. A lot of commissioners wanted to know and unbundle some of this information, so we committed to them that we would have a full hearing on this that would include presentations from a number of people so that everyone is fully informed as to what we are doing, how we're doing it, cost breakdown, and an analysis as to why it makes sense. So I have asked several people to be here today. If you don't mind, with your permission, Madam Chairman, I'll bring them up here, ask them a few questions, let them make this presentation. I've asked our John Reed, our Register of Deeds, to be here to explain about the deed process. I've asked Rhonda Clanton, our property assessor, to explain how property is assessed. And our trustee, Tanya Davis, is going to explain how taxes are collected on that property. I've asked Mr. Shane Hooper, our economic development director, to be here to make a presentation. I've asked Commissioner Sweeney, as a professional commercial developer, to give us his insight on how this property is looked and viewed upon as a commercial viable project. So with your permission, we'll start with John Reed. Mr. Reed, if you would be so kind as to take a seat here by the microphone, I'll go through and ask you some questions. And I'd like to, if it's okay, let's go through the full presentation, make notes of your questions, and we can ask them all at the end as we move in a timely fashion. And I hope to get through with this in 30 to 45 minutes is my goal. So you're the Register of Deeds. You've been Register of Deeds for how long, Mr. Reed?
19 years.
And so in your capacity, all the land conveyances come through your offices.
Yes.
Real property, everything gets recorded in your office.
Yes.
How would you describe the volume of instruments that conveying land all through Bedford County at this date and time?
The sales and volume is very high.
All right, and based upon your experience, do you see land records for property that were conveyed on Highway 231?
Yes.
Based on your experience, would you consider land located on Highway 231 as having a great deal of interest to buyers?
It is because of its accessibility. It's one of the hottest strips of land in Bedford County right now. We're close to I-24 and surrounding counties.
Okay. Now, there's a great deal of interest on land located on 231 for farmland. But is it farmland or is it commercial development that what you're seeing?
Commercial development.
All right, so when people buy commercial land to develop it, is it your opinion that they buy the property for the acreage it provides, or is it by the square footage with a square foot for road frontage on 231?
That's the road frontage.
Okay. All right, now the commission is deciding whether to purchase 33 acres of land fronting on 231. Based upon your professional opinion, do you think the price of land on Highway 231 will go up in the near future, or do you think the price of land will go down?
I think it will only go up.
All right, and then I ask you to pull some deeds that showed comparable properties that have been conveyed in the last several years. Do you have those deeds with you?
I do.
Would you be so kind as to go through those and explain to the commission what these deeds are and what the findings you have found on those?
Yeah, the first one is Celebration Feeds out on 231 next to the airport. 5.53 acres. It sold for $412,500 back in '06. That comes out to $74,593 per acre. Curl Construction bought the 5-acre tract right beside McDale Road in 231. They gave $195 for that. In 2019, that's $39,000 an acre. And if you've been by there, they're filling it up with dirt to make it level. The next one, they have bought 15 acres right beside that, between that property and the animal hospital for $1.25 million, and that's $83,333 per acre. Vanderbilt Hospital, I'll just throw that out there just to show you. It's 22.32 acres. It's over $4,870,724. John Young, he's got the corner 2 lots beside the property that we're talking about. He bought that in '07, 10.46 acres for $1,230,117,590 per acre. Larry Price sold 2 lots just recently. It does not front 231, but He sold it for $475,000, which is $43,981 per acre. O'Reilly's Auto Parts, they bought the corner lot down by the racetrack, 3.88 acres, and sold for $500,000 or $128,866 per acre. And then right across his racetrack, they bought that piece of property, which is 2.36 for $859,500. And that's $364,2 an acre per acre is what that came out to. Very high dollar land out 231.
In your capacity as register,
Yes.
these are very high numbers you're seeing in the last few years for property that's there in and about that 231 area.
Yes.
That appears to be the commercial hotbed in this county, is it not?
It is.
Do you think if the county purchases 33 acres to expand the industrial park, it will enhance the value of the property, or will it reduce the value of property on 231?
I think it will only enhance the value.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lee.
All right.
Thank you very much. All right. I would like to ask Rhonda Clanton, our property assessor, if she'd be so kind as to come forward. Couple of questions for you, Ms. Clanton. How long have you been the county property assessor?
25 years.
25 years. Can you tell us briefly how your office determines an assessment for property?
When we get a deed through from Johnny's office, we look at that sale. We send out sales verification forms to get as much information about that. So when we start appraising that property, we can appraise it correctly with any, bundle of rights, what they can and can't do with it. We don't always get a plat. There may be a plat floating around out there, but nothing has to be recorded. It's not law. So we look at every avenue to see what the highest and best use is of that property and what the use is actually for that property.
All right, now you are not a certified appraiser.
No.
There are several classifications for land assessment in Tennessee and their rate. What are those classifications and the rate?
Residential is at 25% assessment. We're a fractional state, so everything's at a fraction. Commercial is at 40% for real, 30% for personal. Public utilities is at 55%. Farmland is at 25%. And then also the programs that go along with farm, agriculture, greenbelt, that's at 25%.
Okay. So your office looks at what property's been selling for in and around a specific area, and then you make a value and classification determination for that parcel. That's what your office does.
We set new values every 5 years. Once those values are set, they don't change for 5 years. So anything that came in after January 1, we can't adjust those unless we have a legitimate reason to do that. Legitimate reason would be if something was renovated, if a property was split into parcels from a large tract. So depending on how that property comes through on that deed as to how we can appraise it, sometimes we have to leave it just as it is. It might have sold for $1 million. We may have $600,000 on it, and that $600,000 will stay.
But you follow all the sales of the property in Bedford County. That's
Yes.
what you do, track every day, every sale that comes in there.
We track them, and we're audited on that actually by the state to see that we are sending out these verification forms.
All right, now would you describe the activity of real estate along 231 as being farmland to farmland sales or farmland to commercial transactions?
We are seeing more farmland to commercial transactions.
All right, what's the difference of valuing farmland as to valuing commercial land? How do you make that distinction?
Farmland is typically based on a per acre price and priced by that. Commercial property, it can be by lot value, it can be by square footage, it can be by front foot. We look at all avenues. It can also be by acreage.
Okay. So to compare farmland to farmland sales and farmland to commercial land, there's a difference in value determination.
Absolutely.
All right. All right, now, the county commission is discussing purchasing 33 acres of farmland for $2.1 million and putting it into our industrial park. Is your current assessment of the property now based on a farmland or a greenbelt value out there on that property right now?
It's farmland and it is getting the greenbelt relief on it because it is being farmed. Cattle were out there up until 2020 when the tornado came through and tore the barns down. They are cutting hay off of it. Also, it wouldn't matter if it's farm or commercial. You can still have commercial property in greenbelt if it's being agriculturally used.
Okay. Now, just to conclude, you're saying that property assessed at commercial or the industrial rate is valued higher than land assessed at farm or greenbelt rate.
Yes.
That's correct. Does that mean property owners of commercial and industrial properties would then pay more property taxes than owners of farmland or greenbelt properties?
Yes, because they're at 40% on that assessment where farm is at 25%.
They're totally different and assessed different. Great.
Completely different.
Thank you very much, Ms. Klein. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
I'd like to ask our trustee, Tanya Davis, if she would be so kind as to come up for a moment. Thank you, Ms.
Can I
Davis.
back up just a tad so what my back won't be?
Sure, wherever you want to be, just close to the speaker here.
Oh, okay. Well, I talk pretty loud, so maybe that'll help.
All right.
Okay.
How long have you been our trustee here?
For 11 years.
And you're the county's banker, are you not?
Yes, sir.
Good. So your office is responsible for sending out tax notices, you collect tax revenues, you invest those funds, you manage the entire process, our financial for Bedford County, that's correct?
That's correct.
So let me see if I can make certain I understand how the property tax process works here. So the property assessor sets a value to the property. And once you've received the assessed value, you attach the adopted tax rate to the property, and then you send out a notice to residents of the amount that they owe. Is that pretty much how
That's
the
correct.
process works? Okay.
Process, once it goes through the assessor, it's locked down. That's when we are able to get the file from the state, and then that's where the tax statements come through.
Great. So as you know, the county is considering purchasing 33 acres of farmland that is to be converted into our industrial park for use as commercial industrial property. And I asked the Register of Deeds to provide us some examples of land transactions with deeds, and I provided those to you, for you to review. So could you go through and walk the commission through some of the process and the tax information that you have gathered from those 4 or 5 properties and help us understand?
What I'm going to do, because to explain some of this quickly, it's ever changing. As of January 1st is how that tax statement is printed. So needless to say, we get the reports from the Register of Deeds, and we flag those into our system, and we are tracking those parcels throughout the year, because there may be, I'm going to use for the instance, a farm that now we still pull up under the original name, but there's 10 new owners to that parcel. So that being said, we do exhaust every effort to find these owners, these parcels, because it's constantly dividing, regrouping. It's a constant process. I'm saying that some of the parcels that Johnny mentioned and in their sales, these are just going to be a combination of one tract, which actually started in 2011 at 84.5, no greenbelt. It sold again in 2013, no greenbelt. Then it went to 15 acres residential, and now 2020 is commercial at $1,865 tax. And that is that combined the North Point Animal Hospital, the 2 Curl properties. The North Point Hospital in 13 sold at $150,000 for 5.13 acreage, and then in 16 sold again in partnership for the 8563. 14, the base tax was $804. 2020 under commercial now has gone to $8,489. not including personal. Personal tax always follows commercial tax. All right, that is a little example of one. The 15 acres, as I just walked through that, that sold for $1,250,000. These three parcels was one time that one grouping. The other piece of that would be the 5.0 acreage at 195,000, which was 38,922 per acre. That was purchased in July 3 of 2019. So that's just giving an example of how things are moving. Now I'm going to put some teeth to this and give you a little bit of where I feel like that we can really see the numbers. And I'm going to start with the longest one, that was Celebration Feed, that was sold back on 1/5 of 2006. It was Greenbelt. That section, 5.53 acres, went from Greenbelt to commercial. It sold for $412,500. That left it $74,593 per acre. This is in 2006. If it assessed at the 25, it would have been $644.80 on base tax. The commercial, it went to $6,901, not including the personal, which is $1,384. And that's the longest one I have. The next one would be the John Yoon that sold in 12/7 of 2007. It was 2 tracts, lot 1, lot 2 of the Carlton subdivision. Combined, it was 2.46 acres. It sold for $1,230,000. That was $117,590 per acre. Under residential, it would be 2609. Commercial, land only, is going to be $8,343. Now asking $5 million. Racetrack sold 5/5 of 2019. Greenbelt on larger parcel, but now commercial. 2.36 acres sold for $859,500. That's $364,194 per acre. Taxes in 2020, just on the land, commercial $37.67. If taxes were at 25% at 2731, 2020 at 40% is $18,282. Now that is land and the building. So and then, as I said, personal property tax will be added on 2021 of the contents of the racetrack. O'Reilly's Auto Parts sold at $315.21. This was and is commercial. 3.88 acres at $500,000. $128,865 per acre. Residential would have been $25.80. Commercial $41.29. Land only. We do not have improvement, and I don't know if it'd be 21, probably 22. Don't know. But that is just land only. So once that O'Reilly is built and that improvement hits the tax roll, then the personal property will hit that tax roll. And I think that's probably about.
So the bottom line is commercial property generates more tax revenue than Greenbelt
Yes.
property does in there. All right, so based upon your experience as a trustee, do you see the Highway 231 area as generating more commercial tax revenue than it does Greenbelt revenue?
I see personally, my opinion, that it's becoming more and more commercial. And even picking up today, never can let it go. When you give me a bone, I'm going to eat it up. Looking at even some of back toward town, the frontage, some of this is on farmland. It's not even on Greenbelt. And a lot of this Greenbelt is not the frontage. There is a lot of agriculture, but it seems to be not on the frontage. So I do project it is a hot spot in its growth.
Great, thank
We
you.
are busy with it.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Commissioner Jeff Sweeney, run him through a few questions here. Commissioner Sweeney is a home builder, a commercial developer, has been doing this for a number of years. So could you explain to us a little bit about the concept of commercial pricing versus acreage pricing for agriculture and farm pricing purposes there?
Right, so farmland is usually purchased by the acre based on yield. Commercial property is based on the square footage. So when we started this conversation, I went back and looked at Williamson County and Rutherford County. They're averaging anywhere from $14.50 to $18 a square foot for land that is sold, not land that is for sale. We're looking at $1.50 roughly. The city steps in and does their half. We're down to 75 cents a square foot roughly.
Well, let's walk through that model that you, when I gave you the deeds, you walked through the model on the pricing there.
So what we looked at was Davidson County, which is, I know, over an hour away, and we're trying to stay within our area, but in the last 5 years, Davidson County is up to $36 million, 4.6 acres at $180,000 a square foot.
180 bucks.
I'm sorry, $180 a foot. Williamson County in the Cool Springs area is $24 to $26 per square foot. Rutherford County's $18 to $22 per square foot. Sumner County is $20 to $24 a square foot. Now, I bought some property in Sumner County in 2006 for $425 a square foot. And I would like to ask Rhonda, of these properties that sold in 2007, what would be the value of those properties today? The ones that, you know, that we're buying for Celebration Feed in 2006 for $74,000 an acre.
I don't have the value.
Well, I can tell you they wouldn't sell it for $74,000 an acre today.
No, we wouldn't sell that, absolutely not.
So I asked you to take those deeds and do an outline on the square footage pricing model. I think you see that you put together there.
Yeah, so we were looking at, I'll just give you some of them because I know we're on time. Celebration Feed sold for 5.5 acres. I mean, purchased 5.5 acres for $239,000. 239,000 square feet for $412,000. The square footage price is what we have to look at, and the amount of street frontage. The issue that we're running into is we need the street frontage for our industrial park. And I'll let Shane speak to this, but I'm also involved with the Economic Development Board, and the amount of activity that we're having coming in now gives us a very short window of land opportunity. And we need that 231 access for the bigger footprint boxes that are wanting to buy commercial property and be commercially active in Bedford County because of traffic. That's a big concern. The other thing you have to look at is when you buy commercial property, you're looking at two ways: active commercial purchase and speculative. Speculative means it doesn't usually have infrastructure. You know, it's within the 5-year boundary that it could come, but you're speccing it. So you're taking the risk, hoping that it actually gets there at the right time. What we already have is the opportunity to purchase industrial property that will have infrastructure in place. Now, one of the things that we're struggling with as a county is finding property that actually has infrastructure that we can use. That's a huge problem in Bedford County. We need to take advantage of the properties that already have infrastructure in place for the short term. And as part of the economic development, and what Shane is focused on is what's going to happen in 3 to 5 years. We can't wait until we're built out in the industrial park and then start looking for land, because it won't be at this price. And so we are having to look down the road 3, 5, 7 years. If you look at what real estate has done in the last year, it is absolutely crazy. Residential lots in Bedford County that sold in 2007 for $15,000 are now $65,000. We have a 2.2 acres at Fairfield Pike in the bypass that just went up for sale, 2.2 acres. They're putting infrastructure in, $850,000. So you're looking at, you know, $10 a square foot. We're at $1.75. We have to be really careful looking at property by the acre for commercial property, because we're going to miss the boat. It is a risk. I had someone in my district call me today and said, you know, I think that's crazy. I can buy farmland for 3,500 acre. And if you can find some farmland for 3,500 an acre right now, then you need to buy it. because it's going for $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 an acre. And this land will not be there in 5 years, and we're going to be looking for it. And if you look at what Commissioner Vick and Shane Reeves and the mayor and Pat Marsh did to get the TCAT school here, we do not have but probably 2 years worth of inventory land for the industrial park. And that's a real risk with the growth that's coming to Bedford County. And we always hear as commissioners, we don't want the jobs that are $10, $12, $14 an hour. The companies that we're talking to right now are $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 a year jobs. That's what we're trying to create for Bedford County. But to create that, we are going to have to spend some money. And I think it's important for the public to understand we don't take $1 million or $2 million lightly. It's very important that we study this, and we have 60 days as part of this contract to study that, and we're going to spend those 60 days studying it. And one of the things that has to happen in that period, the city is going to have to agree to pay half. So the city steps and says, we don't approve it, then the deal's probably dead. But it's our part as the county would be 70-something cents a square foot. I think that's a huge opportunity for us.
Well, I think as we go through that outline on the deeds we had, I think Celebration, the square footage price at $412,000 is $1.72 a square foot. On the John Yoon property, which is right next door, they paid $1.2 million. The square footage price is $269. On the racetrack property, the purchase price is $859.5. That's $8.36 a square foot. The O'Reilly property at $500,000 for 3.8 acres, that's $295 a square foot. The Curl property at $1.2 million for 15 acres, that's $1.91. If we buy this 33 acres at $2.1 million, that's 1,437,000 square feet. That's $1.46 a square foot we're paying for it. And if that's not cheap enough, if the city pays half and we pay half, we're at 73 cents a square foot for commercial property, like Commissioner Sweeney said, that has the water and the sewer and the infrastructure already in reasonable proximity to be attached to it. 73 cents a square foot. In Nashville, it's $1,000 on Lower Broad. It's $180 down on West End. 73 cents. If somebody says it's too much money, I don't know how much lower we can go. I think it's an excellent opportunity. Now, I'd like to ask Shane Hooper, our Economic Development Director, to come forward and ask us a few things to enlighten you a little bit about where we are with the industrial park and our industrial program. Mr. Hooper?
And Jeff, while he's going up there, that celebration fee is at $677,300. It's about
$250,000.
Okay. Come down.
Hey, Shane, while you're in your part of your talk, can you let the public know what are some of the acreages that are required by some of the businesses you're talking to also?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I have my back, so
You're fine.
Remind me to make sure I answer that question. I'm going to start this story by talking to you about when I got here in late December. When I got here in late December, one of the first things and one of the things that I will always remember is that when I met my neighbor getting up early one morning, leaving his house, and we had not met each other before, we just waved at each other. And that kind of sparked a conversation as he was warming up his truck and I was warming up my truck to get ready to go. He said, you know, who are you? And I explained who I was. And he said, well, I hope you all the success in the world because what you do will make a big difference in my life. He was getting ready to drive 45 minutes to work. And then obviously he would have 45 minutes to drive back to work. Why is that important? That's important because that's time that he could have been spending with his family. We have a lot of people here in Bedford who drive 45 minutes, if not more, to get a decent job, to be able to make a living wage, to be able to provide for their family. I've always told people, if you want to make a community better, make the dad of the family a better dad. How does a dad become better? Well, when he can get a job, when he can spend time with his family. If we have better dads, we'll have better mothers. When we have better mothers and fathers, we'll have better children. When we have better fathers and mothers and children, then we'll have better family units. When we have better family units, then we're all going to be more successful. And that's one of the things that I think is important to remember about economic development. You've heard a lot of numbers today, but let me tell you the true story about what all these numbers mean. These numbers mean that people can go out and provide for their families right here in Bedford County. It means that when people graduate from high school, they don't have to leave here and try to make a living for themselves and maintain a certain level of standard, a certain level of lifestyle for themselves, because they can do it right here in Bedford County. So that's why what I do is important to me, and that's what drives me each day, is knowing that the work I do is going to make our community a better place. When I first got here, here was my immediate observation. It looked like to me, and you got to be careful about what things look like, because you always want to make sure that something is not deceiving you. But here's what I saw. Here's what I thought I saw. What I thought I saw was a county that was not participating in economic development successes. It looked like peer counties, other counties right around us, were participating in a lot of economic development success, but we weren't. So I said to myself, okay, let me make sure I'm seeing what I think I'm seeing. So I called TVA. TVA does a lot of work in economic development. I said, here's what I need. I need to see in the footprint for Southern Middle Tennessee, I need to see the announcements that have been in these counties around us, and I'd like to know how many announcements we've had. When I got the numbers back, it proved what I thought I was seeing, that Bedford County was just not participating. Why are we not participating? Let me give you some numbers right quick of what I found from TVA. Over 200 new announcements all around us. It's like a little hive, like a bunch of little bees just all around us landing, and these other counties are participating in this economic development success. But then when you take a look at Bedford County, we had one little bee, and that was all. And when I tried to find out what that one was, nobody could really tell me what the one was. So out of all these announcements around us, we had one, just one. And I always tell people in life, it's not what happened, it's why. The why is always more important than the what. Let me give you an example. If you see somebody and they lost 80 pounds, most of us would be like, wow, they lost 80 pounds, until you know the why, that they have cancer. The why is much more important than the what. So then I started looking at the why. Why is it that we aren't participating in the success? So I told Tennessee ECD that I wanted to get out with them, and I wanted to ride these other counties, and I wanted to see what they had. What are they doing that we're not doing? What is it that's going on there that's not going on here? So we did a ride around. Here's what I found. They had more land. They had more spec buildings. Let me give you an example. There's a county near us, what I would call one of our peer counties. They are on their 7th spec building. You know how many buildings that we have done as a community in our industrial park? None. They're on number 7, and we haven't done one yet. So what do you do about that? Here was the action plan to come behind that. I did some research with USDA, and I said, okay, I've heard that people come to you guys to do spec buildings. How do we make this happen? So we went to USDA, we found a pathway forward. When I found the pathway forward, I said, okay, I'm going to need some partners to help make this happen. So I reached out to Duck River Electric, South Central Planning, Tennessee ECD, TVA, TVA's Enhanced Property Enhancement Program, and USDA, all of us in the same room figuring out how do we move Bedford County forward? How do we go from none to at least one to get us in the game? I'm not looking for us to compete with Nashville. I'm not really looking for us to compete with Murfreesboro. What I am looking for, though, is for us to be competitive with our peer counties. There's no reason why we can't be competitive with the counties around us. There's absolutely no reason. So here's what we did. After that meeting with all those entities, we created another pathway forward. Part of that pathway forward was to set up a meeting with TVA to come in and talk to the Economic Development Board about a spec building. During that meeting, something happened that I already knew, but it landed at the right spot. Some of our elected officials heard when TVA said, if you don't have access, one of the things that's hurting any industrial park is when you don't have access. Let me give you an example, and y'all work with me through this because you probably know the road better than I do. Let me give you an example of not having access out to 231 and what that means. Let's take Walmart distribution, for example. If they come out of their driveway, take a right on Frank Martin Road, then they have to take a 90-degree turn to make a right. That's one turn, right? Then they get down just a little bit and they have to make another 90-degree turn, right? And you got to remember, these are big trucks, okay? Then you pass by the water tank and you get to another stop sign. What do you have to do again? Take another 90-degree turn. And if I'm not mistaken, once you go down to the next stoplight, then you have to take another 90-degree turn. Is that not right? Everybody agree with that? How many 90-degree turns is that in an 18-wheeler? How many is that so far? 4. Oh, and by the way, the challenge is not done, because when you get ready to get out on the highway, what do you got to go do? You got to cross over, but who do you have to deal with? The hospital traffic. If any of you all, some of you all have been around 18-wheelers, some of you have driven them, some of you all have family members who've driven, some of you all have businesses, and you know the challenges of industrial traffic. So now that you've made all these 90-degree turns, you're down by the hospital, what do you have to deal with? Hospital traffic. So Ms. McGillicuddy, who is trying to make her 9 o'clock doctor's appointment, is now in the same traffic with your 18-wheelers. I need somebody to tell me who thinks that's a good idea. These are the types of things that, quite frankly, the peer counties around us that are successful don't have to deal with. You want to know why? Because they did planning and they said to themselves, when we do this, here's some standards that we need to meet. And some of our elected officials heard the standards that need to be met when we had that spec building training. As I already knew, you had to have more land and you had to have a spec building. And we're still moving towards that. Now, I will say this, credit to all the elected officials, especially those that have been helping with economic development, because you know what? We don't have a spec building yet, but you know what we do have? We got a pad. And for everybody that says, well, that's not very much, we ain't never had one before. Okay? So it's progress. We are moving in the right direction. We have elected officials that have helped, elected officials that have been supportive, elected officials that have helped us move in the right direction. It takes access, it takes property, and it takes infrastructure, but we're not alone in trying to get this done. We've got help out there from a lot of different partners. There are people here in Tennessee, entities that would like to see us be successful. I will tell you right now, first of all, the people of Bedford County have been nothing but nice to me and my family from day one when we arrived here. For Bedford County, we have help. We have statewide help. We have people that are pulling for us. For Tennessee, let me back up. For Southern Middle Tennessee to be what it can be, we cannot leave Bedford County behind, and everybody knows that. For Tennessee to be what it needs to be, you can't leave Southern Middle Tennessee behind, which means you can't leave Bedford County behind. We've got help, but what do you always tell folks? If I'm going to help you, you got to help yourself first. Okay? And that's where we are today. That's what we continue to do. Let me tell you about some of the help that we have. Tennessee ECD. This is the first time in Bedford County history, the first time. I got to sit here and take another shameless advertisement for our current elected officials. Because of their support, for the first time in Bedford County history, we are part of Tennessee's property evaluation program. The property evaluation program is free to us if we will help ourselves. If we turn in the property and say, will you help us determine where our next industrial park will go, they will send engineers and strategists and site selectors here to help us determine where our next industrial park should be. For the first time in Bedford County history, we are part of the property evaluation program, and it costs us nothing, except we have to help ourselves. That's why you got me. I turned in all the paperwork, and I painted a real nice picture of what we're trying to do and the support that I've had so far. And they said, hey, look, if you can get that kind of support, we're going to support you too. We believe in what you're doing. So that's the first time we've been part of the property evaluation program. Because we're showing commitment, they're willing to work with us. The other thing that we have already been taking part of in the past, and we're going to continue to take part of going forward, is site development grants from the state. Site development grants have allowed us to go out to our industrial park, knock down the hedgerows and the fence rows and the extra trees, clear the land out so that it looks great. Thanks to Bates Construction and some wonderful work that they did out there, and thanks to a whole lot of other folks for making that happen. But we have an industrial park now that shows well. We have to help ourselves before we can expect somebody else to come in and help us. But we're making those strides, and now we have people willing to come in and help us. But those site development grants are also going to allow us now to do the pad that we didn't have before. You know what you have to have before you can have a spec building? You have to have a pad. So we're on our way, but we still got a lot more work to do. Oh, and by the way, too, the purchase that everybody's talking about this afternoon, depending on the grant and depending on the entity, we will be able to offset that grant as our matching piece. For example, going forward, we will be able to point to property purchases and say, here was our commitment, here is our matching part to the grant, which means that we don't have to come up with any more money because of that. So kind of to the 75 cents point that was being made earlier, once we combine some more money with that, we should be able to get that even further down. I can't promise that, but here's what I can tell you that we're doing. Every day when I wake up, I am looking for opportunities to make Bedford County better when it comes to from an economic development standpoint. Let me give you another couple of things too. To my knowledge, and to no one's knowledge that I could find that was knowledgeable of economic development, have we had the type of site visits and activity that we've had in this county in the past 4 months. We have literally had somebody with 500 jobs come to Bedford County on a site visit. Now, are they going to choose Bedford County? I don't know. But here's what I do know. If they never come look, they sure ain't coming, okay? We may not be where we want to go, but we're moving in the right direction. After that site visit, we got sent and were selected to turn in an RFI on a 750 job project because we did a good job and because we showed well on the 500. Can I tell you that those things are going to happen? I can't sit here and tell you that's going to happen. Both of those may walk away and we never hear anything else about them. But here's what I do know. If we don't take a shot, if we don't get in the game, we're never going to have anything like that. They will continue to be in our peer counties. Tennessee, oh yeah, let me go ahead and cover this too. Tennessee ECD and TVA, here's what they say about our access to Highway 231. They use the word critical. It is critical for future planning because as we start to put projects in that industrial park, and oh, by the way, I'm going to go out on a limb and say some things here. We're sitting in a pretty good position right now to really make some things happen. And I don't want to set that bar too high. I don't want to get everybody excited and say, oh, Shane said we're going to get $750. That's not what I said. I said we're doing the types of things to be successful. But here's what I am telling you. Tennessee ECD and TVA for future planning purposes, and I met with them today for 2 hours talking about our industrial park. That access straight out to 231 is what they term as critical for future planning for that park. It is critical. We have to have it. And you remember earlier when I said one of the things that our peer counties had that we didn't have was land. We still have right now an 86-acre industrial park. Other communities are looking at 200, 250 with a rail, 1,000 and mega site. Do I think we'll be able to get that kind of stuff going forward? I don't know, but what I would like to do is at least make the best out of what we do have right now. Can we compete with our peer counties going forward? Oh yes, I firmly believe that. I told the mayor months ago, we may not be number one yet, but we're going to be number one in trying to get there. We're in the game, what I would call for the first time in a long time. We're in the game for the first time in a long time. One of the other, oh yeah, and here's another point I need to cover too. I've heard some people say, well, Shane, let's start a new industrial park. Great idea, okay? We have to move in small incremental steps. To start another industrial park, that's a great thing, and we want to do that because at the end of the day, when we're all gone, when we're no longer living, I want people to look back at this time and say, those folks back in 2021 got it right. They set us on a path for success. I don't want, right now, if we fill up our industrial park, if we were to have somebody that came in tomorrow and said, bam, we want all 86 acres of what you got. You know what we would do next? Anybody got any bright ideas what we do next? I'm your guy, and you know what? I don't know. Okay? Because we haven't done the types of things we need to deal with not only today, but we've got to deal with our future. When we're all gone, I want people to say, that guy in Bedford County, that Shane guy, and all those elected officials back then, they set us on a pathway where we knew what we were going to do next. 20 years from now, I want folks to know what comes next. A new industrial park, yes, 10 to 20 years down the road, but those things take time. Let me give you an example of why it takes time. A new industrial park, especially if you start looking at industrial parks in Bedford County right now, really, technically, by the book, the only suitable place that we have for a new industrial park is in the city limits. In the city limits. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Come see me and I'll be happy to cover each one of them with you. But if you can't, well, turning on the lights is not that big of a deal because Duck River and TVA have that covered. But when you can't flush the toilet and when you can't take a shower with the water, you're not developing it. We got a lot of work to do. ARP funds just came. We need to make sure that we spend those funds wisely on sewer, water, on projects that are going to move us forward. Let me tell you one example, and then I'm going to wrap up. We looked at a site outside the city limits just to get the sewer. Just to get the sewer there. $1 million. I didn't say 100,000. I said $1 million just to get the sewer there. And you know what? When you get the sewer there, guess what you still don't have? Water. Guess what else you don't have? Natural gas. Okay? So anybody that wants to say, well, we can just go start another park, come see me. I'll be glad to explain to you why it's not that simple. If it were that simple, I wouldn't be here, and I'd be somewhere saying you won't. Anyway, that's not a good joke. Anyway, it's not that simple. $1 million just to get the sewer out there. And oh, by the way, you still don't own the property. You still don't own the property. You got sewer out there, but you still don't own the property. So let me end this by telling you for the first time, we are actually in the game. We've got people that believe in us. We've got Tennessee ECD and TVA and some other folks that are actually out there trying to help us get where we're trying to go, but we've got to help ourselves first. But let me tell you this, and I want to go back because I would be remiss if I didn't do this, because I've talked about a whole bunch of great things and I've talked about a whole bunch of possibilities, but I need to go back and cover this. We have only began to do the types of things that it takes to be successful. We just got started. We didn't get here in 1 year, in 4 months, and we're not going to get out of this in 4 months. We've just now gotten started with the types of things that we need to do to be successful. We're not there yet. We have seen some proof of what hard work can benefit and can bring to us, but we're not there yet. We have, I will tell you this, we have four what I would term as viable projects. I don't leave here and say Shane said, and I'm sure somebody from the media is here. Don't leave here and say Shane said, but we have four viable projects. What does viable means? That means that we've got interest. That doesn't mean we're going to get any of them. But I don't know the last time we could sit here and honestly say that we've got some people interested in being in our industrial park. But that doesn't mean that it's going to happen. We can control, here's what I'm going to end with. I can't control other people's decisions. In other words, I can't control what companies decide to come here, but here's what I can control. We can control our actions. We can control the things that we do to help ourselves.
Shane, tell them what an average acreage is, some of the companies that are coming in, what they're looking for.
Yeah, the question is, what's the average acreage on some of the projects that are looking to come in? Some of the larger projects that we have seen, everybody wants to look out for, like, where was it out near Saturn? What's it called? Spring Hill. Yeah, out near Spring Hill. You know, people talk about those big battery manufacturers. You're talking about 150, 200 acres, sometimes 300 acres just for one plant. And oh, by the way, when you ride around and look at our peer counties, a lot of them are on the verge of 200 plus industrial acres in the industrial park as well. Can you be successful with less? Yes, you can. But the type of success that everybody wants to look at and point to and say our peer counties are participating in, it's going to take some more acreage. That answer?
Yeah, some of the companies that have looked at Bedford County, they're wanting 5 acres under roof.
Yeah, that's an outstanding point. We've had a project that said they wanted 3 million square feet under roof. 3 million square feet under roof. Oh, and by the way, too, if you draw that out, you can't just sit there and say, well, that's all you need, because then you got to have runoff area too. You got to have, I wish Chris was here. He could tell you what that word is. It's a nice fancy word for runoff. Anyway, any other questions? I love talking about this stuff. Anybody else got any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Hooper.
All right.
Madam Chairman, that concludes our portion here. I would strongly urge the committee to consider this option agreement and ask if they would be kind enough to forward to the full commission for vote at the July meeting. Thank you.
Okay, what is the wishes of the committee? I make a motion to put it before the full commission.
Sure.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed?
Can I say,
Sure.
what your motion was to consider purchasing the property, correct?
Yes, and put that before the full commission.
Right, okay, so we have a resolution document that legal's putting together that would reflect that for consideration. The one thing I need to stipulate or say in there to make sure that, and we'll get this, I'm just getting the document now, literally emailed to me, but we'll put it in there, but there will be some verbiage in there about closing costs. Now, it would be shared with the city, but I don't know what that number would be, but there will be obviously some due diligence that has to go on, so I don't want to mislead. And you didn't actually set the dollar amount, but I'm just saying, when you see the resolution, you'll see numbers in there, commissioners. So look at that, understand what you're looking at, call and ask questions. We can clarify them on the floor the night of the commission, or whatever you'd want to do there. But I don't know exactly what that number would be, but I don't want you to be misled about what you see in that resolution.
And we still have 60 plus days of due diligence period.
You do have, right, that's correct. There's about 60 days left on the option.
Yeah, and I know that, what I was seeing too, will that include when we get our packets, that how exactly, if the city agreed on it and we agreed on it and all that, how it would be paid for, how we would pay for it?
I'm happy to speak on that if she'll let me.
Yeah, go
or we're
ahead.
comfortable with
Yeah,
that.
I was about to ask.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to, wait and see. I didn't want to get everybody twisted up in regards to paying for it. Robert's not here tonight because he's at the school board meeting, but we discussed it again today to make sure that what I'm going to say to you tonight, we can validate. And that is, there's really a couple of ways to do this so that we don't impact the tax rate, which I think is important, probably everybody around here. There is a hospital reserve fund from when the hospital was sold. Those dollars were put in reserve because they impact our ability to borrow money long-term when we're looked at by the rating agencies as to what your interest rate would be. So long-term, that money must go back in there or it could potentially affect our rate later. But short-term meaning a year or two short-term, you can borrow out of there if you need to, as long as you've got some understanding that you really should put it back. Now, if the commission chose not to put it back, you wouldn't have to, but that wouldn't be best practice. And so I'm going to tell you how we could put it back. There's the two main options that would give us the opportunity to put a chunk of money right back into the account pretty quick after drawing it out would be, one, we have some real estate sales that are kind of pending. We've got the gymnasium that, and I don't know what this dollar amount will be, but I'm just talking to you about where you may have some money pop up pretty soon. If we sell the gymnasium, there could be some dollars there. It would certainly be my recommendation, Robert's as well, that we commit that back to the fund if we borrowed from it. The other one is the Main Street Market, and that's not a guarantee that we would want to sell that product or that project off, but we are going to be doing an RFP to see if there happens to be a development group or folks that would actually do what we're trying to do. And in that process, it might very well be a transaction of the property, whatever dollars that would be, to go back into that account, putting it back. The other one is long-term. And I know that this has been up and down and we kind of put it on hold, but there is still some interest in the EMA bill, the current EMA bill. I don't know if Scott here? Yeah. Long-term, that could potentially be some funds if that transaction happened that could go back in to start to put back the $1,050,000, $100,000 into the system. The other option, and normally I would tell you this isn't an option, but we believe this is something that's viable that we'll be able to do due to the fact that all these grants are coming in right now through the federal government, from COVID to the governor's direct grant to these other grant opportunities that are coming at the federal level. As those grants come in, we're going to offset expenses that we normally pay out of our budget. So any of those expenses that we could offset would set those dollars up where they could go over into that account as one time to fill it back up. Do you follow what I'm saying? Or I don't want to confuse you about. Normally, we don't see that kind of grant funding potentially available that we could say, oh, well, let's offset some costs. But given the nature of this current rescue fund, $9-point-something million, there may be some real opportunities for us to offset some costs we normally would have to pay. So we could take those funds and put them over one time. The same would be true, even like I said, with the governor's direct grant, there may be some opportunities, as well as these other COVID grants that are still out there. And there's some other federal dollars that are still pending that it's not clear what all they're going to be able to be used for. So there are ways for you to do this if the body feels that this is a good opportunity to invest. I would consider this an investment because we're expecting something in return for it. When you're just spending money, that's a little bit different. I mean, we'd all love to spend money. I'd love to spend money. But investing, I think, is critical. I think it's something we should think long and hard about. I do certainly support us looking very close at this project. Again, assuming we're partnering with the city of Shelbyville to help see this project through. So is there any other particular question about, if you get too crazy with finance questions, I'll have to get Robert up here. But at 20,000 feet, this is how we think we can do it and not impact the normal operating budget or put us in a situation where we're having to look at tax rate.
Do you know off the top of your head how much we have in the fund?
I do not, but it's a few million. Okay, I think it's about 6. It could be 5. It could be 7.
Do you know how much we have to keep in it to keep our bond rating? Does it have to be where it is, or?
It needs to be close to that. Here's how it was explained to me. Is whenever the Moonies or all these folks that do these assessment, is it S&P or somebody does it too. But anyway, they look at your, I guess, assets, things that you own. And then there's a boost or an added value to actual cash versus just, well, you got a building, you could sell it if you were in trouble to recover some of your debt. So it's value added when it's cash on top of it. So I don't know how they really factor all that, but the value is to keep the bulk of that If we were in a pinch and needed $100,000 out there and didn't know if we had a way to put it back, that might be one thing, but I don't think you can tap $1 million out of there and not put it back. Is that a fair way to say it? And again, Robert can give the details.
Mayor, and I feel comfortable that the city will partner with us, but if that doesn't develop, can we still move forward in this purchase on our own? And have you thought about that? And I'm not looking for you to answer that because it's kind of.
Is my eyes big? Yeah, well, you're just talking about twice the money to do it, but it is something that, again, this body,
It's a good investment long term. It may not benefit me or anybody else in this room, but my grandkids and the people, his kids that come behind him, we got to lay this path for our future.
we've come too far to choke now. We've put in a lot of resources, assets, and moved a lot of things and have a great partnership with the city currently. I do think that we should strongly consider capitalizing on it. Certainly, there would be nothing that would keep the county from doing it. Now, I wouldn't be as comfortable without talking with Robert to say, pull the whole 2 million out there, but certainly there's more than $2 million in there. And he did tell me short term, we certainly can remove it without it having penalties to us, so to speak. So you'd have to then, I can't promise long term that that wouldn't affect the tax rate putting it back though. I'm just not sure. I'm not saying it would, but I'm just not sure about that. I'm just talking specifically, basically our half of the project as we see it and look at it today. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Do we need to change anything in our motion to make it move on correctly?
I don't think so, as long as everybody understands that the resolution,
The
please
resolution.
read it. We're gonna give it to you plenty in advance, and I won't, but you will see, there's a disclaimer in there, although I haven't got to see it yet. I was talking back and forth with legal through text. That's in there that says, you know, there'll be a split or a cost share between the city and county for the due diligence and closing, whatever. And that's any transaction, if you've ever bought anything, I mean, you can't get around that. But I don't want to mislead you in that. I thought it was $1,050,000, and it turned out to be $1,075,000 or something. I don't know what
Can
the
the
numbers are.
seller not pay closing? Can we not ask him to?
We
pay
certainly will
closing?
negotiate everything we possibly can. I had a constituent today tell me, or yesterday telling me that we don't want to pay asking price for anything. And I don't disagree with that, but if you actually look at real estate transactions and sales, people are putting things on the
Sometimes they're
market
going
and
more.
it's selling for more than they put it on the market. So we will do everything we can, I promise you, to get every advantage at the table that we can.
I would just ask the seller to pay the closing.
Yeah, and that's very, very possible that that be negotiated.
One thing I did want to point out is since Commissioner Smith wasn't here, he asked me several questions to ask, but I've already talked to Commissioner Vick about it, and they were applicable to this situation, so I got those answered for him beforehand, so.
I think it's important, we need to bring this up. Our industrial park being as close to the airport, which most industrial parks are not that close. And I don't know of any industrial parks that are gonna have a $38 million TCAT school to be able to draw employees from. I think those are two important factors
44 million.
in our 44 million, in our location for the industrial park.
Absolutely.
It's definitely an asset. Any other discussion on that before we move forward? Thanks for the presentation. Okay, any announcements? Okay, our committee will adjourn. You gotta make a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Okay.